Okay, you've seen the title, you know this one's probably gonna be a bit spicy. If you agree with our picks, then great, fantastic. If you don't agree, that's gravy, we're all friends here. Let us know your picks in the comments, although if any of you put silence in the library, I will scream. I'm Ellie for WhoCulture, and these are the 10 most overrated Doctor Who episodes. Number 10, the Zygon Invasion / the Zygon Inversion. Let's get this out of the way first. We don't have a single bad word to say about Capaldi's impassioned anti-war speech in the back half of this two-parter. It remains one of the absolute highlights of 12's run, and watching it back, it's clear why Moffat had the confidence to give Capaldi the show's first one-hander in that very same series. But beyond its final 20 minutes, the Zygon Invasion / version spends a lot of time treading water. It finds itself in the rather awkward position of clearly needing two parts, but also not having quite enough story to justify the double runtime. Jenna Coleman's turn as Bonnie is enjoyable, and she's clearly having a lot of fun playing the villain, but the unit stuff here is weaker than usual, and tends to kind of just plod along. A lot of the first episode feels like padding, to the point where it's kind of difficult to remember. This is an hour and a half long, but our memory of it is the final half an hour. Generally not a great sign. It's still a good story, but we do think that people tend to focus on that one fantastic scene when they rave about this whole story. Number 9, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. The Woman Who Fell to Earth has some strengths going for it. It introduces a likeable cast of companions who are more fleshed out here than for most of the era, though they do kill off the most likeable one, which is a shame. It also has a half-decent villain in Tim Shaw, who works well as a background antagonist for a first episode. It also features the most relatable and beloved character of Chibnall's run.
Eat my salad.
I mean, what a legend. Where it falls apart is in establishing a new Doctor. Whittaker gets plenty of silly post-regen babbling as per the norm, but comparatively little material that solidifies her authority, intelligence or grit. It culminates in her big I am the Doctor moment falling rather flat, with us not really seeing what she has to offer yet. We'd have to wait a whole year until series 12 for that. It's so important to stick the landing on introductory episodes like this, and between introducing 4 companions, a villain that gets way too much screen time, and so much needless fluff. I mean, the subplot about the guy finding the space mushroom could have easily been cut. This script completely fumbles its primary goal of establishing the new Doctor. Number 8, The Fires of Pompeii. This is perhaps our first truly controversial pick, and despite the Fires of Pompeii being part of the stellar 4th series, this is another one of those episodes that's remembered for the last 10 minutes, which granted are fantastic in a horribly traumatic sort of way. But the rest of the episode is lacking. The villains aren't particularly strong. You have the underdeveloped and nearly impossible to understand Sibylline priestess, and then the pyrophiles who crumble the moment they come into contact with water, which undercuts their threat significantly. The main antagonist, Lucius Petrus Dexterous, is painfully hammy, and not the good kind of hammy, the kind of hammy that makes you want to slap him in the face really hard. The plot itself meanders around Donna telling people Vesuvius is about to ruin their day, and everyone else responding with a resounding, nah mate, it won't happen. This element of the plot, while vital in introducing Donna to the rules of time travel, starts to grate the third time you hear the same conversation. The family themselves are fun enough characters, and Capaldi is naturally a delight, but the insistence on using modern day slang, plus the running joke of comparing Quintus to a 21st century teenager, take you out of a plot that would have benefited from a more serious tone. It's about one of the most cataclysmic natural disasters in history. It's not difficult to read the room on how this story should feel. The Fires of Pompeii is solid, but it's on the lower end of the Series 4 scale. To be fair though, it is up against some fierce competition. Number 7, Village of the Angels. Village of the Angels is often thrown into the ring as one of 13's best, but we mostly put that down to 2 things. A fan favourite monster getting their own story for the first time since Series 7, and Kevin McNally giving us a lovely guest character in Professor Jericho. What a top guy. Where this episode starts to fall apart is a lack of direction. The front half, while genuinely spooky, spends an awful lot of time not saying a lot, while the back half is essentially half an hour of running away. There's an interesting idea in there about the Angels being an extraction squad for Division, but not a lot is done with it beyond some rather dull Chibnall-style expositioning, and after the cliffhanger is resolved, the Angels are swept under the rug very quickly. It makes this story feel like filler. Pretty fun filler, we'll admit, but New Who's most iconic original creations deserve a lot better than to be a taxi service moving the Doctor from one plot to another. Claire was built up quite a lot in Flux, to the point where it seemed like she was going to be integral to the plot, and some people thought, for who knows what reason, that she was a Clara Kara Echo, but she was hardly relevant to the wider story at all, leaving her scenes feeling a little redundant. If you want a 13 story that's creepy and atmospheric, but actually has a lot of substance to it, The Haunting of Villa Diodati is the one you want. Number 6, Army of Ghosts / Doomsday. The ending of Army of Ghosts, which teased a showdown between the Doctor's two greatest foes, was enough to shatter Whovian brains in 2006. But the payoff for that long-awaited moment has always been lacking. Doomsday starts off very strongly, with the iconic Dalek Cyberman slam poetry throwdown.
Outline resembles the inferior species known as Cybermen.
But quickly descends into an army of Cybermen being absolutely minced by 4 Daleks. And the end result? The Daleks solidify their already established threat level, but the Cybermen are so thoroughly trounced that it takes them until the final episodes of the Capaldi era to be scary again. Ten and Rose don't end on a particularly high note either, with their cringe factor reaching its apex just in time for the finale. Lots of you wouldn't get it in-jokes and a slightly obnoxious honeymoon period vibe. We're not against romantic interests for the Doctor, but with Rose things are far too sickly sweet. It might be sacrilege to say this, but that famous wall scene, while hauntingly scored by Murray Gold, has not aged well and verges into looking like a melodramatic Green Day music video. And a special mention has to go to Mickey stacking it and accidentally activating the Genesis arc, despite knowing that he needs to steer completely clear of the thing. It's a piece of spectacularly awkward writing that nobody ever seems to comment on. We really feel like Mickey doesn't get enough stick for almost dooming the planet with his bumbling incompetence. Army of Ghosts is a solid hype builder, but Doomsday fumbles the bag. Probably the weakest of RTD's finales. Number 5, The Rings of Akhaten. Confession time, we've got a soft spot for the Rings of Akhaten. However, we must concede that, like many fans, that's mainly due to the episode's amazing speech. Few moments in the show manage to convey the burden of the Doctor's immortality like this one, and Matt Smith, backed by a stirring choir, is the perfect Doctor to deliver it. Take that scene away though, and the Rings of Akhaten is a bit slow at best and boring at worst. The central plot is split between Mary running away from her big performance and the Doctor trying to ascertain what on earth is going on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a slow burn. Look at episodes like Face the Raven and World Enough in Time. But in order to craft this kind of story, the core mystery has to provide enough intrigue to justify the time spent unravelling it. And this one doesn't. And with the Doctor and Clara's relationship not moving forward due to them spending a lot of time separated, you have to ask where the runtime even went. And then we have Clara's magic story leaf. The concept of using potential futures as a source of stories to feed the evil Teletubby son is actually quite neat, but it doesn't work. The Doctor literally pours his hearts out, reliving an extended lifetime of trauma, and that's beaten by a leaf? Tosh, we say. Absolute tosh. But on the bright side, the long song is a total banger. Number 4, Rose. Oh, sorry, I'm just putting on my riot gear before I start this one. Rose, the episode, not the companion, isn't very good. Yes, we know, Series 1 seems to be immune from criticism, but frankly, its opener is one of those episodes that's difficult to watch without second-hand embarrassment. It's hard to justify this as a starting point over the 11th hour, for example. Okay, the good bits. The introduction of the Doctor? Chef's kiss. The whole mystery man angle with Clive's conspiracy theories? Love it. The "that's who I am" speech? A contender for Eccleston's best moment. But the rest? Oh boy. It's hard to decide what's worse. The burping bin with its truly awful CGI, or Rose not realising there's something deeply, deeply wrong with her boyfriend when he's stuttering about pizza with a deranged expression and swerving his car across the road. There's a lot of talk about there being a grittier, darker tone for a modern audience in Series 1, and that's certainly delivered on throughout the series. But we're baffled to this day that with such a strong vision for what he wanted the show to be in 2005, RTD launched with one of the most juvenile episodes he's penned. Without the end of the world swooping in the following week, we wouldn't have got anything juicy until Dalek, around halfway through the series. From which point, on the plus side, the episodes are consistently fantastic, so swings and roundabouts and all that. Number 3, Fugitive of the Jadun. All together now, cameos do not equal substance. This could be levelled at quite a few episodes of New Who, but none of them are as lazy as Fugitive of the Jadun. This episode brought back Captain Jack Harkness for the first time since the RTD era, and proceeded to do absolutely nothing with him. Aside from him not actually interacting with the Doctor, his sole purpose in this episode is to drop saucy gags and deliver some needlessly vague foreshadowing about the lone Cyberman. Does Jack knowing this information even make makes sense. He's not present for any of the events involving Ashad. Now, this episode did introduce us to Jo Martin's Doctor, who is actually pretty baller. But all the teasing about her origins and the introduction of the Division amounts to net zero by the end of 13's run. Instead, it's clear that the Fugitive Doctor was created because a mysterious incarnation sounded fun, and not because Chibbers knew what to do with her, which is a crying shame and a waste of talent. On first watch, this episode makes you sit up and pay attention, so fair play to it. But on reflection, it's a soulless, empty mystery box that doesn't deserve as much praise as it gets. Number 2, Listen. Oh, sorry, just double checking my riot gear for this one as well. Listen seems to generate a level of hype we don't quite understand, with more than a handful of fans deeming it the pinnacle of Series 8. A baffling statement regarding a series that contains Mummy on the Orient Express, Flatline, and Dark Water and Death in Heaven. Listen is very unnerving and atmospheric, and whatever was hiding under that blanket can go straight to hell. But the episode loses steam in a major way once we get to Orson Pink. His appearance at all is paradoxical, given Danny's little incident with a passing car later in the series. But beyond that, he's just a little bit of a charisma vacuum. We understand this story is about the Doctor's need to know all the answers and his refusal to admit his fears might be unjustified, but the resolution doesn't land. If the entire future segment was removed and we had an episode with the same sentiment, but entirely set in the creepy orphanage with Danny as a child, Listen would have had a much stronger story. The monster of the week is still paranoia, but it would allow us to spend more time on the creepiest part of the episode while developing Danny in a far more meaningful way, rather than using the bargain bin version of him. Elsewhere, we get what Moff was doing with the Clara and Danny date subplot, but two smart people would not talk or act like that. It's cringy, as intended no doubt, but painfully contrived. And number 1, The Girl in the Fireplace. A lot of fans consider every single Moffat script in the RTD era a straight 10 out of 10, but lumbering this one in with The Empty Child, Blink and the Library two-parter is a major disservice to the other 3. Throughout this story, 10 is a bit of an arse. Slap bang in the middle of this romance arc with Rose, he drops her for the first woman who offers him a cheeky dance, leaving Rose and Mickey on a creepy spaceship covered in human organs while he parties and gets hammered in pre-revolutionary France. Later on, he full-on abandons them without a second thought by trapping himself in the past with Renette. This feels like it should have major repercussions for his burgeoning connection with Rose. But despite her intense jealousy of Sarah Jane just 1 week prior, Rose is now totally chill with the Doctor dropping her like a sack of potatoes. It feels like a major missed opportunity. Their relationship could have benefited from a bit of straining, given how Rose sees him as completely flawless. Elsewhere, while the main plot is highly entertaining with some great location shooting and costume work, plus the brilliantly creepy clockwork droids, the B-plot with Rose and Mickey drags the episode down every single time it comes back around. And you can tell that Moffat had no idea what to do with the companions in such a Doctor-centric story. The Girl in the Fireplace absolutely has merit, and it's still one of the best episodes of Series 2, although that probably speaks more to the amount of mediocre episodes in that series. But Moffat has definitely written a lot better than this, let's be honest. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to go and hide before Sean Ferrick finds out that I've just slandered his all-time favourite Doctor Who episode. Bye-bye!